All right, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. I'm your host, Allen Ulrich, here with my son, Matt. Bob is feeling under the weather, and here in New Orleans, we're actually having a weather alert. We're in a flash flood watch because a really bad storm system is passing through. So, quick question, Matt. What did you think of the draft? I mean, you and I have talked about it off air, obviously, but I want to get your thoughts for everybody else. What you feel like was the best pick the Saints made? The one pick maybe you felt that not that I'm not that excited about that guy. And what other players you think we need to bring in to fill in some holes that the draft did not take care of?
Yeah, so for me, I really did like the draft. I thought, you know, it it was very much aimed for tomorrow than today, because you got Demario's replacement, you got Tyron's replacement, you got maybe you got Cam's replacement, but you got a lot of guys that maybe this year they might not have that many defensive snaps pending injuries, but next year you have guys in the building. That way, when guys like Tyron and Demario they step aside, you can say, "Hey, they're already in the building." But my favorite pick definitely was, I'll say, Kelvin Banks. I really liked him at tackle. He was my third-rated tackle after Mimbo and Will Campbell, and I think we got him at a good value. The one pick I wasn't a big fan of was, of course, Vernon Broughton. I just thought, while defensive line you did need to upgrade that depth. I just thought there was maybe one or two needs you could have taken care of ahead of it, but it's just how it is. I mean, that was a Bo Davis pick.
Yeah, and that's the key. I mean, you had Bo Davis is the defensive line coach for the Saints. He was defensive line coach at Texas. If anything, that guy bringing Brockton in, it definitely is because Bo Davis is like, no, I coach this kid. I can tell you he's going to help us. you know, I excuse me. Bob and I talked about the picks that we liked, and I thought that overall it was a good draft. I felt that they had some holes though that they missed. Obviously, wide receiver is one of them. They needed a big body wide receiver. I felt like in the second round, a lot of them went off the board. And then in the third round, when they took Brockton, they had an opportunity to get a couple of them, but they took Brockton instead. So we've been talking, Bob and I, about who's left out there. Keenan Allen's name comes up a lot. Amari Cooper's name comes up a lot. Is there anybody else that we're thinking of or we should be thinking of or looking at to fill that possession receiver? Because the problem with Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper is they're both old. And this is a young team. So is there anybody out there that we could be looking for or thinking about?
Trying to pull it up right now. Not a lot of names out there. I know some people say
No.
Tyler Boyd is Allen Robinson. It's just guys that either are just bodies or just guys living off reputation. I mean, it's very, very slim pickings. I mean, Keenan Allen's probably the only one that will get you production. And that's the thing. If you're looking for a guy that can play and get you maybe 500 to 600 yards, that's only Keenan Allen at this point.
Yeah, my problem with Amari Cooper is he's done. He was done about 2 years ago. And I've read some comments from Buffalo fans when Cooper went over there, and they really were just like, he's just going through the motions. He can't run anymore, or if he can run, he doesn't have any burst or anything like that. Yeah, I got so desperate, I started looking at CFL players because when Bum Phillips was around, we seem to pull a lot of receivers from the CFL. we this is before your time, obviously, and before some people's time, but Eugene Goodlow came from the CFL. He wasn't a very good player, but he was still a functional player. Um, he stuck around, geez, probably into Moore's year, into 86, Moore's first year. So you're looking at least 3 or 4 years he was with the Saints. But, the problem with the CFL guys, you have a small window in February where you can really like target some CFL guys. After that, it's tough. You really can't get very many. And then I'm looking at the guys that are out there that fit the big body mold. And they're mainly guys that are in their upper 20s, 31, 32 years old. So it's not like there's a lot of young talent out there either.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's why the receivers came off the board the way they did in the draft, because the fans knew, or the GMs knew, you're not going to get very much. So barring a major miracle, is there anybody even in the undrafted market that, because they have a rookie undrafted, rookie mini camp starting on Thursday. It runs Thursday to Sunday, 8th to the 11th. It's not open to the press, not open to the public. The media will only get a small window to see people, and then obviously get the interviews after the mini camp is over with. But there's not a whole lot of attention being paid. Is there anybody that they picked up in the undrafted free agent market that could possibly do anything?
I mean, the guys they picked up are about the same as the rest of the receivers in our room. They're small. They're under 200 pounds. They got some speed to them. I mean, unless they bring in some other guys that are bigger, I don't really see anything worth getting excited over. It's just the same type over and over and over again. I don't know if this is just what Kellen Moore wants, or if they can attract, some of these bigger players.
Well, Tampa grabbed a whole bunch of them. I knew that.
Yeah.
And I saw a few others go. One of them was a former teammate of Tyler Shuck. Cooper, I think his last name is, and he went to Minnesota. But the knock on him was he dropped a lot of passes. So, I'm looking at the list right now of the undrafted guys. Basically, Chris Tyree, he's 5'10", 192 pounds. I think that's one of the guys they're looking at as a kick returner.
Mm-hmm.
There's one other. I just had him a second ago. Moochie Dixon, that's the other one. 6 foot from SMU, 187 pounds. Yeah, I just don't see anything. It's going to end up being just basically Bub Memes is one of the guys that they're going to have to kind of rely on maybe to take a step up this year. It just isn't very much out there.
Yeah. Unless they sign a couple players from the UFL. I mean, there's some guys with size down there, but who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I'm afraid that this is probably going to be pretty much the roster we're going to see going into training camp.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, we're going to be watching waiver wires or making a trade in late August, early September, possibly. I'm not sure when training camp ends. And I'm pointing that out because if you guys remember, back in 2006, it was the third preseason game against Dallas. That following week that the Saints made the trade for Scott Shanley, ended up being the starting linebacker for the Saints. So that was pretty late. And that was right before the last cut down. And the Saints obviously made that move because they wanted to make sure, and they got Shanley. Jerry brings up Derek Carr. So that was the news right before we went on the air. Jane Slater had a tweet that came out about an hour ago now, basically doing a timeline on Carr, and that Carr has been in touch with the with the Saints medical staff. He's met with them twice, but it's not a whole lot of new information. Just basically the stuff that we already knew. He's saying he injured his right shoulder when he broke his left hand against the Giants, and that he did not discover how bad his shoulder really was until he started throwing a football early this spring because I'm sorry, because he'd been throwing basically fake footballs, or I guess Nerf footballs, with Alvin Kamara at the end of the season, seeing if he could come back, and it was really more to test his hand grip. How does this end? How do you think this ends?
Probably along the lines of David Lee Roth divorce from Van Halen. This is going to be public, messy, and a lot of dirty laundry being aired.
Well, my theory has always been, I think he does have an injury, but I don't think it's as severe as he makes it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
That the Saints had a conversation with him when they restructured his deal, and they told him basically, this is what we're doing. We're drafting a quarterback. We're drafting a quarterback early. Might be the first round, but it will be early. And he's going to be our starter. We want you to be the mentor or the guy who is going to give way to the rookie when we think the rookie's ready to play. And Carr basically had the reaction of, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. You either pay me and keep me as a starter, or let me go. And the Saints' attitude was, well, we're not going to let you go because they can't afford to, because they needed that cash.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do a restructure of the deal, and we'll see what happens. We're not saying we're going to be able to draft a guy, but that's our plan. Well, as it got closer to the draft, obviously, it looked more and more like the Saints. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to draft a guy, and that could have been Jackson Dart. It could have been Tyler Shuck or Jalen Milroe. And depending on who they took was going to determine whether or not Carr was going to be the guy. Well, when it got down to Shuck versus Dart, both those guys, if the Saints took either one, were going to be starters. That was going to be their plan. And they looked at the way this draft was going to fall, and they knew they could get one of those two guys. At worst case scenario, they were going to trade back into the first round, like the Giants did, to go get Dart. When they made that choice, they probably told Carr, and that's when Carr came out and says, oh, well, you see, I got this bad shoulder now. Basically tipping off to the entire league that the Saints are going to have to take a quarterback early in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
This is a terrible quarterback class. So once that happens, Carr wanted to see if they could if another team could torpedo who the Saints wanted to take. In other words, Cleveland could possibly take Shuck early second round before the Saints could do it. The Giants could take Dart. He knew they weren't interested in Sanders, but the Steelers could trade up and take Sanders, basically forcing them to go get Milroe, who is not ready to start, or wait and get a guy like Quinn Ewers, Will Howard, Dylan Gabriel, who I don't think would have ever been a choice, but someone like McCord, one of those kind of guys that are not day one, this is my starter from now on. That was his game. That was the game he was going to play.
Yeah.
And when that didn't happen, that the Saints got their quarterback they wanted, I think that's when Carr started feeling the pressure now, because he thought he had good leverage. And now it's starting to come out more and more, he had that little sermon on the mount about his shoulder. Um, he he's starting to let more. His brother David has said a few things, but he's starting to let a little more information out. And Jane Slater's tweet ended with, a decision is going to be made sooner rather than later. That's a very Sean Payton-ish statement, but my opinion is Carr has no leverage anymore, but the Saints don't have any leverage either. They can't trade him to anybody, which is what they would have liked to have done.
Yeah.
Trade him, offer a low-round pick. Hey, if you eat some of his contract or you take some of his contract with him, we'll take a lower pick from you and we'll give you a pick. I think all that's out the window.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be just, we need to end this. We need to end this the best way we can. I think they're going to make this decision after the mandatory minicamp. So unfortunately, it's going to last a while longer. But I think they'll make this decision before June when the mandatory minicamp is. But basically, want to see what does Shuck look like this weekend. So I think that's the big news. Let's see what Shuck looks like this weekend.
Yeah, and how well he knows that playbook. When he comes down to rookie minicamp, how well does he know that playbook? What plays can we throw at him?
And, we've been talking so much about Shuck. We're not even talking about Rattler. Rattler's allegedly more focused, spent some time in the offseason working with a coach to get him and make him a better football player, which he needed to. And he's going to go out there to give Shuck a battle. And I think that's also what they want to see in these OTAs and in the minicamp. They want to see how much better does Rattler look. Does he look like the same guy we saw last year as a rookie? Or does he look like somebody who is actually progressing and will give us a quarterback battle? Because keep in mind, Taysom Hill is not going to be healthy at the beginning of this season. They are talking it's a severe injury.
Yeah.
It's taken a long time for him to recover. So Taysom Hill will not be an option. So, that's the last straw, I think, for Carr. If the Saints figure out that neither Shuck nor Rattler are really going to be worth starting week one, that's the only shot Carr has to come back. But I just don't see that happening. I think they because this team's not a team that's competing for titles to win the division, go to the playoffs. They're rebuilding. They're committed to rebuilding. This is what you do as a rebuilding team. You throw the rookie out there and see what he does.
Honestly, this is more of a test for the coaching staff to see if this is who we want leading the rebuild. Is it what positional coaches need to be moved off of? Because they hired a lot of these guys late. They mostly aimed at college. So I think it's going to be a testament to see how good this coaching staff is, to see if we can elevate and even check to see which players need to be kept longer and which players need to be off the team as soon as possible.
Well, I got into a discussion with somebody on Twitter, Grant, who I really respect and enjoy talking with him. But basically, his attitude is your choice once you made that $30 million choice was you're going to use that money to bring in the players you wanted to bring in. They didn't go and extend a bunch of old guys. So Taysom Hill's contract expires into this year. Guys like Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, there's a couple other, I think DeMario Davis. There's a few others out there. I can't think of off the top of my head. All have contracts that expire within either 2026 or by after the 2026 season. So, a lot of the older players are going to get moved off of. So this is a chance for the young guys to come up and start making plays, and you start seeing it, are these guys who are going to build this team around? Are they going to be part of the core? And that's how I kind of looked at this draft, as this is the beginning of your rebuilding the core of your team. These guys may not be superstars, but they are guys that you're going to start relying on now. These are guys that are going to make up a lot of your depth now.
Mm-hmm.
So, a guy like Devin Neal, for example, he's going to get a lot of touches because their goal is to see if Devin Neal is going to be one of the future running backs of this team. One of the guys that we're going to talk about in a minute, when we start talking about the jersey numbers, Kendre Miller changed his number from 25 to 5 now. Reggie Bush is gnashing his teeth, but he's going to wear number 5 now. He is going to be the running back that is competing with Devin Neal for touches.
In the 5 games he'll be there.
Yeah. Well, this is his last shot because he has the talent, obviously. Yeah. We've seen it. He just can't stay healthy. I've got the Saints Rams, Archie Manning's first game playing behind us, 1971. The schedule release comes out next week, I think. Yeah, and they do Wednesday. Play the NFC West, don't they?
Yeah, they play the West. The Rams, I think this year are a home game.
Because we played them on the road.
No. Actually, they're a road game this year because in 2022 we hosted them, and in 2019 we were on the road against them.
No,
because in 2023 we were not playing the NFC West because the Rams that year, because in 2022 they kind of stunk that year because of injuries, so we played them again in 2023, shared third place schedule.
And we played in Los Angeles, so
no, we didn't. We played in Los Angeles in 2023, but in 2022, we hosted them because that was Andy Dalton throwing that big touchdown pass to Chris Olave and making that, that touchdown gesture. That's honestly pretty hilarious because in 2022, we did play the NFC West. We went 3-1. No, we went 2-2 against them because while we beat Seattle and the Rams, we lost to the Niners. That was our first shutout in over 2 decades.
Yeah, Niners and the Cardinals.
Yeah,
the Cardinals. Keep doing what you're doing. Okay. Yeah. Well, I was hoping we would host the Rams the first game of the season, just like Archie's doing right there. Mm-hmm. Because if that's the case, that's the last time a rookie quarterback has started for the Saints. Was Archie Manning in 1971 opening day. We have not, because Dave Wilson did not start as a rookie. He came in when Archie was hurt, or he came in to fill in for Archie, but he never got a start until late in the season, I think. I'm trying to remember the injury history in Archie. I think Dave Wilson got 1 or 2 starts that year.
He got 4 starts.
4 starts. Okay.
He was 1-3 as a starter. He appeared in credit for 11 games, but was 1-3 as a starter. He had a 51% completion percentage, 1,000 yards, 1 touchdown, and 11 picks.
11 interceptions. Yeah.
Plus Heath Schuler makes Heath Schuler blush.
Yeah, Heath Schuler was 2 touchdowns and I think 20 interceptions.
14.
Okay. Dave Wilson also went 2 of 22 opening day 1985 against the Kansas City Chiefs. So when people talk about, I have never seen a quarterback play this bad, you just don't remember. That was 1985. But that will be, if Shuck starts that first game of the season, that will be the first time a rookie quarterback has started for the Saints on opening day since 1971.
Yeah.
So, long story, a little bit longer. I just feel like it's time that the Saints are going to make the decision to move on from Carr and go ahead and eat the cap problems and just go from there. If necessary, they can play with some of these older contracts, like Taysom's contract, give him some ghost years or something like that if they need to make money, make room
I
to
think they're
eat
going to
Carr's
release
cap
him.
figure.
I
But
think
I
they're
think
going to. I think they're just going to straight up release Taysom. They're going to process him as a potion first and save 10 million towards this cap and eat some dead money next year. Because I think he's just done. I think
but it's the end. But it's a this is his last year of the contract. Why do that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you, I just, I'm just thinking out loud. Let me take a look at his contract because I know it's his last year, but
Yeah,
does it help better to just let him be a post June 1st?
you save $10 million.
I mean,
Um,
you save $2 million, but are you saving more money by releasing him rather than letting it void? Is what I'm trying to get at. Let's see, because okay, so yeah, the dead cap doesn't matter. It'll be the same. It'll be the same regardless. You would just have a.
yeah,
It just said 10 million saved would probably carry over if you don't sign anyone. It helps carry over to the next year.
yeah. I just don't think. Well, first of all, I think he's going to be on the physically unable to perform
Hmm.
list, the PUP list, to begin the season because he's just not going to be healthy enough. So they won't have to make that decision until late in the season, and
Yeah.
they'll see where they are.
Hmm.
But I just feel like they have too much respect for Taysom just to let him go outright. I think it's the same thing with Cam. It's the same thing with Demario. It's the same thing with Teron Matthew. It's the same thing with um, even Ryan Ramczyk when he retired. They knew he was done, but they rather, out of respect, because he is a player that they like, would rather go through the motions of, okay, so you're not going to play anymore. We will pay you, put you on IR, and then we'll release you when you to announce your retirement. And I think that's what they would do with Taysom,
Yeah.
rather than just cut him outright.
Hmm.
Um, that just and I think the fans would appreciate that too. They can tolerate that over
Yeah.
what they want to do with Derek Carr. They just want Derek Carr gone, and I get it. I'm just tired of talking about their man. I really
I'm tired.
am.
Yeah, I'm tired of him being on the team. Like I have no animosity towards Derek Carr. I'm
I
just
don't either.
yeah, like that's how everyone feels. Like Derek Carr haters, yeah, but people who have like no real animosity or just don't care about him are just like, go away. We're done. It's long. You're basically the drunk guy who's still raging when the party's long over.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's just the guy he's just that piece of furniture you have left in your house that is still a good functional piece of furniture,
Hmm.
but nobody wants to sit in it, and nobody wants it. But you can't just really justify just putting it out to the trash heap. But it's time. It's
Yeah.
time. We're tired of moving it. We've moved twice with it. It's time to move on. And I think that's just the way people feel. Some people feel about Carr. The rest of them just hate him. I mean, they
Yeah.
absolutely hate him. And that brings me to the Tyler Shuck story. And then I want to talk about the first round pick, who we have not talked about at all. We've talked more about a second round pick than a first round pick.
Yeah.
But so Tyler Shuck has apparently looked at everything Derek Carr has done and said, you know what? I'm going to be like opposite George. I am going to do the opposite of everything that Carr did when he got here. That way people will like me.
Yeah.
And
Well,
even fans
yeah.
who were mad that we didn't take Shedeur Sanders, we took Tyler Shuck instead, are saying things like, you know what? I may not like the pick, but I like what this guy's doing. He goes to dinner at Drago's. He has, I guess you can call it a practice session, but he's out there throwing passes to Juwan Johnson, who he played with at Oregon, Bub Means, and even Kevin Morrow, who has who's still recovering from his knee injury, his knee
Foster
surgery.
Moreau.
Foster Moreau, sorry.
Yeah.
Kevin Morrow is as a writer. He's a
Yeah.
sports journalist for LSU.
Mhm.
Don't ask me where that came from, but Foster Moreau is out there. Excuse me. He's out there
too.
now. He can't really do very much, but he's still out there with him. He doesn't have to be out there, and Tyler Shuck posts on social media, "I will die for you on the playing field." Whereas people wanted just to kill Derek Carr, and on the playing field.
At the playing field.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just funny. It's to me, it's just that.
I think
Anna's talking about Carr, of course.
Yeah,
but
I think fans are going to try and give Derek Carr vacation tickets to Pontchartrain Beach.
Pontchartrain? No, not even Pontchartrain Beach. Just send him out to Lincoln Beach with the homeless guys. Yeah. So yeah, I mean. He's trying to win over the fans. He's trying to win over his doubters. He is showing that he wants to be a leader. He is showing he wants to get the respect of his teammates. And I think the fans appreciate that because Archie's been speaking up a lot of him because he comes from the Manning Passing Academy, and Archie has invited him to come back as an instructor at the Manning Passing Academy. So Archie likes him a lot. I'm sure Drew is going to make some comments about him soon. I like what I'm seeing out of the kid. The kid is reaching out to the city. He is trying. And I'm going to give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if he's going to be the answer. It's hard for second-round picks to really have an impact in the league. I mean, right now, the highest that a second-round pick has done in the league is obviously been Jalen Hurts. I kept wanting to say Milrow, and I knew it wasn't. Jalen Hurts, obviously, as a second-round pick, has led his team to a Super Bowl. Has been to, I think, 2 Super Bowls. So, you see and Drew Brees is a second round pick. Derek Carr is a second round pick. But, so is Will Levis, and there's a few others out there. A lot of busts have been second round picks.
Yeah.
But, you're looking at a kid that he's got a shot. This is a team that doesn't have high expectations. He has a possibility of doing something. So,
yeah. So I did find some interesting stats. So I went back to looking at all the second round quarterback picks for the past 15 years. And only one quarterback taken in the second round has had a positive touchdown to interception ratio and a winning record in his rookie season. Guess who that quarterback was?
A positive touchdown interception ratio that came in the second round.
And had a winning record as a rookie. Or a non-losing season.
I don't know.
He played for the Saints at one point.
At one point, he played for the Saints. It's not Jim Everett.
You got to think 2010 to 2024.
Andy Dalton?
Andy Dalton. He had 20 touchdowns and 13 interceptions in 2011 and went 9-7 as a starter for the Cincinnati Bengals. They made the playoffs that year and then got blasted by the Houston Texans with J.J. Watt killing him for 3 sacks and a fumble return for a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm sitting there going through my mind of all the guys who went to a playoff caliber team.
Yeah.
I can't see Shuck leading the Saints to the playoffs, honestly, because
He's got to have a Justin Herbert type year for the
no,
Saints to
he
even
just doesn't have
stick.
enough weapons. And I mean, we talked
But
a little
even
bit
if he
about the
doesn't
running
have,
backs.
even if he doesn't have enough weapons, if he can just elevate, which is something you can't honestly show on a tape, if he can just somehow elevate the team with his passing and his play, then you can probably squeak into the playoffs one way or another.
Well, if you can win 10 to 11 games, you're going to win this division
Yeah.
because the rest of the division is not as good as people want to make it out to be.
Hmm.
Atlanta has a lot of talent right now, but they have Raheem Morris as a head coach.
And Jeff
Uh,
Ulbrich as our defensive coordinator.
yeah, and it's just I'm never going to be a believer of the Falcons because the guy is going to make bad decisions,
Yeah.
and they find ways to lose because that's who the Falcons are. They're a team that finds ways to lose. I don't care who you put back there because that Super Bowl team back in 2017
16.
or 2015.
16.
No, 2016. It was
Yeah.
2016. That's right, because the Saints had 1,000-yard receivers and Brees threw for 5,000 yards. So in
And had a 1,000 yard
2016,
rusher.
yeah, 1,000-yard rusher. So this, here you have a team that's more talented than the Patriots team, and they still found a way to lose because that's what they do. That's who they are. They had no business being up 25 points to blow that game and lose it, but they did because that's who the Falcons are. So no, I'm never going to believe in the Falcons as being because even if they win, I know they're going to lose. They'll find a way to
Yeah.
lose. That's just not,
Yeah.
even to make it to the Super Bowl, they'll find a way to lose. But and Tampa's got a lot of weapons, a lot of talent. But Tampa's another team that finds a way to lose. Now, granted, they got the Tom Brady rental to make them look good for a while. They got the ideal dream matchup to win their first Super Bowl. John Gruden out there imitating Rich Gannon, telling him everything he's going to do out there, and that famous NFL Films footage of him out there doing all the pumps and everything else and telling him exactly where he's going to go with the ball. Yeah, they knew that playbook. They knew that team better than the Raiders knew themselves. And Carolina, I think Carolina is like us. Carolina, they're a year ahead of us, but they're like us right now. They're trying to rebuild their defense. They're trying to get younger. They're trying to get better. And they got a moron for an owner.
They're also trying to see if their quarterback is a guy worth keep going with. I mean, he's entering his third year. He has to show that he can grow and improve.
He has to show he has to improve from last year. After he got benched, he looked like he was going to be a legitimate NFL starter.
Yeah.
Can he do that moving forward?
Yep.
Okay. So, yeah, a lot of things have to go right. The first thing has to go right, though. Let's talk about the Saints' offensive line, because I think that last year, that's as soon as McCoy went down and the middle just caved in like a sandcastle, I think that's where the whole season went off the rails, because now Derek Carr's got pressure in his face. Now Derek Carr is doing what the older Derek Carr does. He starts panicking, starts throwing balls up high because the rush is getting in his face, or he's doing a lot of checkdowns, and they can't run the football any longer. So what do you like about Kelvin Banks? Is it that you make this such a good draft pick?
So Kelvin Banks is probably one of the more elite footwork kind of pass protectors. Like, he does a great job trying to keep his balance. He does a good job getting into where he needs to be. I think his reach is average for a tackle, 33 and a half. give or take how you feel about that. I know you prefer 34 longer. I think 33 and a half is just fine. But what's so underrated about him is his run blocking. He's the opposite of what Trevor Penning does. Trevor Penning, he likes to maul you. He likes to hit you. He likes to get up high. Kelvin Banks, he loves to go low. Every one of his best run blocks, he always hits his matchup or wherever he's supposed to be blocking right at the waist of the defensive lineman. And you just watch him fall off balance and unable to make any sort of play. Then he moves on to the second level and takes on the linebacker with ease. I mean, all the big runs Texas does, you just watch Kelvin Banks get low, jab him at the waist. The defensive lineman just falls or it can't recover in time, and then he moves on to the second level. I mean, against Michigan, he did that to Mason Graham, and Mason Graham was just like all of a sudden it's just losing his balance and getting overpowered by the guard.
So that's my question then. Where is Kelvin Banks play in this offensive line his rookie year?
Has to play left tackle. I know a lot of arguments going to be maybe left guard. No, I think he has to play left tackle and you kick Fuwaka to the right tackle. If those
and what happens to Penning?
Penning either can do these two things: compete for left guard or be the swing tackle. If you believe that Penning is not part of your future and your future tackles are Banks and Fuaga at Banks at left and Fuaga at right, then go ahead and place him on there. That way, when you get into next off season, you don't have to worry about switching their positions anymore. You don't have to go into question of, well, can this guy do this well and that well and all that? No, you have now 4 set players playing in the same position that they have last year, and you'll just have that hole at left guard, which is way easier to fill, whether in the draft or free agency. I'm tired of, having these questions of, well, do we have to switch this guy and that guy? Do we have to do this? Do we have to do that? No. Have set answers at those positions outside of just McCoy and Ruiz.
Okay, so who is the Saints left guard right now?
Right now, it's projected to be Nick Saldiveri if he's healthy. If not, it'll be the free agent Dylan Radunz.
Okay, that's what I'm looking at right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they have not released a depth chart yet. They're not going to do that until minicamp and
not even like an official depth chart wouldn't be until
leading up to the first
preseason game.
Yeah,
but
because they're going to be moving people all over the place.
Yeah, but if you're wondering, what will the first official offensive line look like going into the first day minicamp? That I think that's what you're looking at. Like who's running with the ones, and of course they'll experiment like crazy. Like on the first day of minicamp, they're like, okay, Fuaga's already a left tackle, and they got Penning on the right side. They have Lucas. I think they said they had Lucas Patrick playing left guard, or he was a tryout. Then they eventually signed him in June because I think he was a June signing, and they tried Saldiveri and he got hurt during camp, and Lucas Patrick just ran away with it.
Yeah, if I'm looking at our lads who is going to have, this is kind of what they've got set up here. They've got Chris Olave and they've got Chris Olave and Brandon Cooks as the starters with Rashid Shaheed as a slot guy. Yeah. I actually would reverse that. I'd probably put Shaheed as the Y and Cooks as a slot, but that's me. They got Kelvin Banks, Dylan. How do you say this guy's last name? Renews? What is it? Redunz. Okay. They got Dylan Redunz as the left guard with Salvadori as his primary backup. Eric McCoy, Cesar Ruiz, and Fuaga as the right tackle, with Trevor Penning as the backup right tackle. They also have to let these guys know Foster Moreau is hurt and is coming off injury because they've got this thing color-coded for injuries.
Okay.
Yeah, he's coming off of an injury, so they have him as the starter, but Juwan Johnson actually should be the starter. um, this will also be the first year, barring any changes, that the Saints will not have a fullback on the roster.
Yeah.
Which, and you have to go back to, man, God.
Yeah, because Sean Payton always had a fullback. Hazlitt had a fullback. I'm I'm pretty sure Ditka had one.
Ditka had him.
Mora definitely had
Moore
one.
definitely had him.
Phil,
Um,
Phillips
I,
did with
Bum
Gujon.
Phillips did, yeah, because Hokie
Uh,
Gajon was a fullback.
what about Dick
So was
Nolan?
Wayne Wilson.
What about
I,
Dick
I
Nolan?
can't think of a time where the Saints never had a fullback on the roster.
Yeah, they always had one because
Because
I'm thinking
we
with
were
Dick
one of the
Nolan.
last ones that had them.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, they have the fullback position. They have blank.
yeah. For now,
Um,
I think it's
yeah.
probably going to be like a traditional H back. I know Sigler had Taysom listed as a fullback, but I think
Mm-hmm.
that. But I think the Saints are going to carry like four. I think they'll carry four tight ends, and you'll probably see like I think Holker might be the H back fullback kind of position, the split end. I think that's what it's called.
They just call it H back because F back is a typical is more of a pass catching tight end. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I know the fullback position is dying, and I'm sure there's gonna be times where they're gonna have two running backs back there. They'll have,
Yeah.
um,
I
you
think
know,
primary reason why the fullback's dying is one, they like going with the more 11 personnel where you have two tight ends, and second, when colleges are not using fullbacks anymore.
I
Like
know.
you're not finding a worthwhile fullback. I mean, right now, Kyle Juszczyk is the last fullback, like last true good fullback.
I can't believe that. I mean, where's Bob? I can go on my dedication to the fullback. There was a time in the 70s, in the 60s, where the fullback was the primary ball carrier. The running back was the guy who didn't get the ball as much. The
Yeah,
fullback was the running guy. The running back was more the pass catching guy or the guy that would do, he was a speed guy, went outside. But when you needed tough yardage inside, I mean, Franco Harris was a fullback. Larry Zonka was a fullback. Jim Taylor was a fullback. Um,
yeah,
Pete Banaszak with the Raiders, he was a fullback.
yeah.
You
Hey, Dad,
know,
you want to know what's sad? So
hmm,
I'm looking at PFF teams they had listed with the fullback last year. Guess how many teams?
wait, what? How many teams?
How many teams had a fullback?
Two, maybe
Eight.
three, huh?
Eight.
Eight.
Eight. Yeah, the Denver Broncos with Michael Burton, the
Mm,
San Francisco 49ers with Kyle Juszczyk, the Buffalo Bills with Reggie Gilliam, Baltimore Ravens with Patrick Ricard, Dallas Cowboys with Hunter Lupke, Minnesota Vikings with CJ Ham, Saints with Adam Presence, and the Miami Dolphins with Alec Ingold.
yeah. And if you run 11 personnel and you run out of the shotgun
Mm-hmm.
with RPOs, you know, there's no place for a fullback on the field, and they hardly are on the field because no
Yeah,
one lines up in the power eye. No one
rarely.
lines up in the offset eye anymore, and definitely don't do split back. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's a different era for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Like Dallas and the Niners. I think were the last few teams that ran the split back because Lufke actually had some career carries. Ricard is used quite a lot, primarily in like design quarterback runs because he's basically built like a defensive tackle at 6'3", 305.
Yeah,
Burton still using power that, but yeah, it's just
and let's not forget the Saints used to use Colin Saunders in short yardage. Uh,
he can be
put
our fullback.
put Big 50 in there if he makes the team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you think? Well, let's go back to the offensive line for a second.
Yeah,
So you think Penny will be the swing tackle or the third
Mhm.
tackle for jumbo sets, and they're not going to try and move him to guard?
I think they're going to let him take a few snaps at guard. They're going to try and see because Saldivari, he's going to get hurt. He just does.
Yeah.
He and Kendra Mill just go ahead and say, all right, what day can we expect you to be with the trainer? Oh, Wednesday. Okay, we'll see you then. We'll see you then. And then they'll go ahead and let Penning try at guard.
Yeah, it was against Carolina, and that's right.
No, it was against Tampa.
Tampa, but yeah,
Tampa.
Prentice did fumble it. Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I have not been happy with the Saints fullback since probably Zach Line. When the Saints had Zach Line from Minnesota, it was the last one. The ideal fullback for Sean Payton, I think if you asked him to name his favorite, probably Heath Miller was his favorite because he liked the pass catching aspect of him.
It was Heath Evans, not Heath Miller.
Heath Evans. Sorry, Heath Evans. Heath Miller was the tight end.
Yeah,
Heath Evans.
Tight end.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that would probably be Sean Payton's favorite. That was in the 2009 season. I can't think of the guy from 2011.
That was I think that was
Jedediah. Yeah. What was his last name?
Jebediah Collins.
Jed Collins. Yeah. I like Jed Collins, but I love Kuhn when Kuhn came from the Packers and Zach Line. Those are the last two I really, really liked. Just because I like the little wheel route out the backfield, or on sprint right option where you're sprinting out and you're throwing the ball to the fullback right there, 3 yards from the line of scrimmage, and no one's covering him because they always think he's just coming in to block, and he, gets in the end zone. So, who was a fullback who had a saying, "Just do your job"? Well, I know Sean Payton was one, but I don't remember. One like that. That sounds like a Zach Line thing. Heath Evans probably said it too, but there were two fullbacks from the Hazlitt era that people really liked. Mike Carney, who scored the 3 touchdowns, and that's Heath Evans. That was Heath Evans who went to Total Access, NFL Total Access.
Yep.
And the other one was they called him some kind of dinosaur name. What was his name? He was number 44 too. Jim Haslett in 2001.
Was it Terrell Smith?
That's it, Terrell Smith. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was two popular fullbacks in the Saints from back in the day. And of course, Hokie Gajan was a fullback. Wayne Wilson was a fullback. Tim Wilson was a fullback.
Ironhead Hayward.
Buford Jordan from McNeese. Yeah. USFL guy.
Lorenzo Neal,
the guy
eventually
he blocked for 1,000-yard rusher every year but one. And it was his last year with the Saints. He did not block. Mario Bates came up like 16 or 20 yards short or something ridiculous like that. But that was the only one he didn't block for a 1,000-yard rusher. So, yeah, Ironhead Hayward. Boy, I got some stories about Ironhead Hayward. And Ironhead's youngest son just got drafted, didn't he?
Let's see, because I know Connor already got drafted. Let me see.
It might not have been this year. It might have been last year. I was just shocked that his son was still out there.
Let's see. I know Connor got drafted in the 2023 draft.
Oh, 2023. Okay.
Yeah, he got drafted by the Steelers. He's still on the team.
Right, because they were talking about Casey Hayward is almost ready to retire because of his age.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's so surprising. That shows you the age difference between his kids. So, Yeah, Brad Muster was the guy that uh, Jim Finks wanted to draft over Ironhead Hayward, but the Bears took him ahead of it, so we ended up drafting Hayward, and he single-handedly kicked our ass in the 91 game that we lost 20-17. But Brad Muster was the one keeping the Bears in that game, and he was doing it again in 92. And that's why Finks was like, all right, we're getting rid of Hayward because he ballooned up to 345 pounds or some ridiculous weight like that by the playoff game against the Eagles. So we're like, we're letting Hayward go. We're bringing in Brad Muster. And the reason why Brad Muster was still a free agent was because his hamstrings were shot. So we got the beat up Brad Muster. The Bears got the actual good one. So, yeah, that's the story on Brad Muster. Yeah. I just like Chris Berman's nickname. He would call him Brad Colonel Muster with the candlestick in the end zone. Those of you who ever played Clue. So one of the arguments against moving Penning to guard was that Penning was too tall. He's 6'7". When you have a quarterback who's 6 foot tall, like Spencer Rattler, you can see that argument. But now you've got a quarterback. If it ends up being Chuck, you got a quarterback 6'5". Now it's not a big problem with him being 6'7". That's 2 inches. To borrow the office, that's what she said, is not that much of a difference, but it's enough of a difference for a 6 foot quarterback that a 6'5" one can now work his way around it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see if Penning can try out as a guard now.
Yeah.
I don't think he's got the footwork for it.
I don't think he has the bend for it.
And I don't think he has a bend either, because I think, part of Penning's problem is he lets people get into his pads and pass protection.
Yeah,
I think he's killer in the run, and if you put him at guard and you put Banks next to him, I think you could become a left-handed team, and you're running behind them all the time.
Yeah, but I think you can run from either side because Cesar Ruiz, despite all of his problems, is a good run blocker. He can definitely, when he's fully healthy, he can move bodies. I mean, there were times where last year when both Penning and Ruiz were fully healthy, they were clearing the way for the running backs to get good yardage. So it's not like, it's not like Ruiz isn't a bad run blocker. I mean, so if you have starting off the line of Banks, Penning, McCoy, Ruiz, and Fuaga, I think you will be able to run the ball effectively, and that will help if you have Shuck, if you have Rattler, if you decide to shoot yourself in the kneecaps and start Carr, you'll have guys that can move, that can run.
Carr will never play another down for the Saints. I'm 100% convinced of that.
Yeah.
If they can't cut him, they're going to put him in IR, but they will not put him out there ever again. It's just they can't. They can't. They've got to move on from him.
Yeah.
Being able to run the football is also huge because I think the passing game is going to be a real challenge for Shuck. We started off the show talking about the absence of receivers. You don't know how long Olave can stay healthy. Shahid's coming off a knee injury, and you've got a very old Brandon Cooks. And you've got, Juwan Johnson, who is streaky as a pass catcher. So that means you got to rely on guys like Bub Means, the kid, he was what was his name?
Kevin Austin Jr. Kevin Austin Jr.
Kevin Austin Jr. Cedric Wilson, for some reason, is still around. I mean, you're talking about a lot of guys that even Drew Brees have a hard time making look good consistently.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't even Traquan Smith level receivers. These are
Yeah.
guys that are more like um, Brandon Coleman level guys. I'm just looking at this roster here because, like I said, they got Olave, Cooks, and Shaheed as the three starters. Uh, yeah, Cedric Wilson, Kevin Austin, Bub Means. You don't even have MVS anymore on the team. He got signed by somebody else. I just don't know where this passing attack is going to come from.
Yeah.
Unless they make a trade or unless they pull somebody off the scrap heap, I just can't see it.
Yeah. I'm paying attention to the Green Bay Packers and wide receiving core because they drafted two receivers in the draft. Matthew Golden, first round pick, and
Hmm.
Savion Williams from in the third round from TCU. And the two receivers I'm looking at on their team are Romeo Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks. I think Dobbs might still be on the team, but I think Wicks could be a roster bubble kind of guy, and I think the Saints could make a move. Might send either a late round pick, like a sixth or a seventh rounder, or maybe they'll take their chances and hope they can nab him in a waiver wire because I think he's going to be released.
If they really like him, they're probably going to make a trade for him because they're not going to want to risk him on the waiver wire. Because I think that's what happened basically with the undrafted group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they didn't have that many roster spots open, and I think a lot of teams just grabbed whoever they could grab as receiving threats. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's look at defense real quick before we get out of here. Um, I'm looking again at our lads. The starters they've got Chase Young as an outside edge rusher. Davin Godshaw as the nose tackle. Brian Brzee as the other defensive tackle or defensive end, probably. With Carl Granderson now as the other outside edge rusher. It's not a true 3-4. It's a hybrid defense. So, you're going to get these kind of, uneven fronts. With your backup players being Cam Jordan, Colin Saunders, Nathan Shepard, and Isaiah Foskey. It's a make or break year for Foskey. Is this going to be a year where we actually see something of him?
Hopefully. I think he might rotate with a few people, but he's got to show he can beat somebody. He's got to show he can do something, anything. Like
what's frustrating about this is, a lot of people say, "Oh, look, this is what happens when you take defensive tackles and defensive ends from no-name directional universities." Like Davenport came from University of San Antonio, Texas San Antonio. You drafted Peyton Turner from the University of Houston, not exactly a powerhouse defensive school, but Foskey comes from Notre Dame. Foskey played and set the Notre Dame record for sacks. He had back-to-back years where he had 11 sacks. He had 26 sacks total in 4 years. That was a Notre Dame record. And Notre Dame is obviously not a no-name school. We can all talk about how once they face the SEC and get their ass kicked, that's the problem. But Notre Dame does turn out good players in the NFL. So it's just such a total mystery how he can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an issue with Foskey. All right. So we look at the linebackers now, the inside linebackers. They've got Pete Werner and Demario Davis with one of my favorite linebackers as a backup to Pete Werner, Danny Stutzman. That's one of my favorite draft picks. I'm really curious to see how this plays out. This is where it gets interesting. And on this thing, they've got listed as the cornerbacks. Left cornerback, Isaac Yiadom is the starter. Right cornerback, Kool-Aid McKinstry, with Alontae Taylor as the nickelback or the third corner.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, do you think Alontae Taylor stays as a slot cornerback? And number two, if that's the case, do they make a move to try and get somebody to come in to compete with Isaac Yiadom as a starting outside corner?
I think, for one, I think Alontae Taylor should stay at slot, but that to me is up in the air, in all honesty. Because they drafted Quincy Riley, who can play slot, but I'd rather him outside. But in terms of if they bring in another corner to compete, I'm going to say no. I don't think they will yet unless something looks off. Unless something looks off with the cornerback play. Like, it has to be more than just, Isaac Yiadom and Quincy Riley not doing well. It has to be like McKinstry's not functioning well with the defense or something like that. It has to be more than just that.
Well, you don't have Dennis Allen anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And for all Dennis Allen's weaknesses, secondary was a strength for Dennis Allen. You always knew the cornerbacks. He was going to turn out a guy like an Isaac Yiadom into a capable starter. My fear with a guy like Yiadom is he's got a very low ceiling. We might have seen the best we ever saw of Yiadom 2 years ago when he was with us with Dennis Allen. So I think you need to bring in a veteran in there because I don't like the idea of Yiadom being the starter, especially with Kool-Aid McKinstry. This will be his first year coming out of the gate as a starter. That's hard. An undrafted guy or a guy who's, not a name, not somebody that was drafted very highly to be a starter, with a second-year player who was a second-round pick, but a second-year player starting for the first time. I really think you need a veteran back there to do that. And I'm looking at not Alontae Taylor. I'm looking at Asante Samuel. I know the story is he's been hurt, and that's why he hasn't signed with anybody. But I would get him in just to be a voice in that locker room and to push these young kids to, be better, to play better. It's a scary proposition. And I know we took Quincy Riley, but we took him in the third round.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's ready to start yet. You don't have that veteran guy back there, and that's, what happens when you lose a guy like Paulson and Debo. That's what happens when you trade a guy like Marshawn Lattimore. Now it's becoming more of a challenge to have that veteran voice in the locker room. Because your safeties right now are Justin Reed and Tyrann Mathieu, with Jordan Howden backing up Reed and Jonas Sanker as the backup to Mathieu. Matthew's an older player. He makes business decisions. He doesn't go out there as not really a hitter, whereas Jonas Sanker is.
Yeah.
That secondary is kind of scary with Tet McMillan now with the with the Panthers. We already know what the challenges the Bucs are going to have, and the Bucs brought in their version of a healthier, younger Chris Olave with their draft picks.
Yeah.
And the Falcons have their passing game. I mean, I don't fear the tight end, but they still have some weapons. Drake London can, when he does catch the ball, He can be effective. He can be damaging.
Yeah,
Um,
Mooney was a nightmare for us.
yeah, we always had those guys. Douglas was a guy who used to piss me off. He would make a lot of big catches. He wouldn't do anything for anybody else.
Musha
Um,
Muhammad, Joey Galloway.
yeah, exactly. I mean, there were a lot of Saints killers who played and were like second, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but they would kill the
Yeah.
Saints.
Joey Galloway at 35 years old, burning the Saints secondary for a 78-yard touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, so with a questionable pass rush, some run defenders, and a young secondary with a lot of challenges. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, when if Quincy Riley does get some starts, is you do that once the season's pretty much over with, and you start trying to use this guy and get some experience for next year. I mean, that's the thing. Jonas Sanker. I mean, is that a guy that you're gonna play a lot in special teams? Is that a guy that you're gonna start kind of pushing Matthew out to see if he can handle it back there? I mean, Danny Stutzman, I think, does get some starts in there.
Yeah.
Just because I think he is an inside linebacker that's going to be a hitter. It's going to be somebody who's going to shut down the run. So, I mean, that's scary with a rookie quarterback and a questionable passing game. It's a lot of challenges, and I'm excited to see what this team does and what this team can do with younger coaches, and not thinking about they still have this thing listed as a base 4-3, and that's not accurate at all. But I mean, I don't know. There's so many positions where I'm just like, I'm not satisfied. I really am not. And, I think they're going to try and work this defensive tackle from Texas, Brockton, in a little bit more with Godshaw. I think Kalen Saunders and Nathan Shepard are really going to fight for their playing career with the Saints.
Yeah.
I could see one or both of them being let go, just because.
The only problem with Nathan Shepard is that you gave him a 1-year extension.
Yeah. Well, they got Shepard basically backing up Brzee, so Kalen Saunders is the one who's in more danger than anybody else. If Brockton can show that he is a upgrade, I can see Kalen Saunders being moved on from. I mean, it's just I'm not saying that this is to compete for the division to win the division. I just think these are challenges this team is going to have to overcome early. When is the schedule released, by the way?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. Okay, so we'll know what the schedule looks like. I'm sure it's going to be leaked early, but yeah. So Bob and I are going to be sitting there probably going through the list just like we did last year, where we had that murderer's row of 7 games to begin the season. And I said to Bob at the time, if this team is 3-3, Allen may still have a job. But if it's worse than 3-3, he's not going to be here. And what happened? They started out 2-0, and then they went on the losing streak. And I know the injuries came into play, but that Denver game was just awful. I mean, it was awful. And Allen got let go after that.
He got let go after Carolina.
I'm sorry, Carolina. Carolina was even worse because that was a game we had that game won. Yeah. And they found a way to lose.
Yeah, I think, and we're just watching all the Saints players just unable to cope with the fact how they lost. You had Cam Jordan just,
No, he walked away. He didn't go in the locker room. He just walked.
Yeah. I mean, that was a writing on the wall.
Yeah, and the decisions they were making on the field were just awful. So, but the point remains. I said if they started out worse than 3-3 at the 6 game mark, Allen wasn't going to be around, and
Yeah.
I thought they could win 4 of those 7 games, and I had Carolina 4 of the first 8 games, and I had Carolina as one of the wins,
Yeah.
and it wasn't. So that final that home game, I mean, that Carolina game in Carolina, I mean that's what it is.
Yeah.
So receiver and cornerback are my must. They need to sign somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they're aging, they still need to bring somebody in.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind
Just
someone like
just as a voice.
I wouldn't mind someone like Rasul Douglas.
Who's that?
Rasul Douglas, big corner, more of a zone guy, but he fits. He fits that kind of scheme.
Is he still available? Is he? I
Yeah,
don't.
I looked on Spot Track. They showed him as being available, but then again, they don't update. They haven't
Yeah.
updated enough. Let me see. Yeah, shows he's still available.
Yeah. Let me look here. I'm looking at the ones I got on here. Uh, yeah. Receiver is depressing.
Ooh. Yeah,
Okay. Wow. I'm just looking through the list of guys. Um, yeah, James Bradbury at 31 years old.
mm-hmm.
Rasul Douglas is still out there. Stephen Gilmore at 35. CJ Henderson, who I remember Saints fans wanting to get when the Dolphins got him. Oh, Arthur Millette, old former Saint,
Yep.
local kid. He's still available.
Mm-hmm.
Asante Samuel, of course, because of the connection. He's only 26 years old. Wow.
Yeah, he is very young.
Uh, oh, look, Eli Apple's available. Look at that. I wonder why. Yeah, other than that, there's very few people I think that are starters, starting capable players. Yeah. Yeah, why let me just look at this guard because we haven't. I mean,
Always add another one.
yeah,
Who can be our?
Brandon Sharif is still out there.
Mm-hmm.
He's 34 years old, but he's still out there. Cody Whitehair, who was drafted at the same time as Andres Pete.
No, Michael Thomas.
Oh, Michael Thomas, yeah, 2016, yeah.
Yep.
Um, that's really it. Nobody else. And wide receiver, which we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Keenan Allen, Amari Cooper. No way. Nelson Aguilar. DJ Chalk, ex LSU player. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he gives you much height. Tyler Boyd, who Bob likes.
Yeah.
Chris Connolly. Wow.
Yeah.
He outplayed Michael Thomas. Because I remember he was the Ohio State teammate of Michael Thomas. And he was the lesser of the two. And he's still kicking in the league.
Did he go to? I thought he went to Georgia.
You're right. I'm wrong. And he was drafted the year before.
Mm-hmm. The guy you're thinking of that that was his teammate was Braxton Miller, and he was already out of the league by that point. I think he was out of the league
Okay.
in 2020 because he couldn't transition to wide receiver.
Deontay Hardy's still out there, but that's
Yep.
just a little target.
Mm-hmm.
Allen Robinson is still out there. He's
He's
old.
completely washed too.
Yeah. We want to go back to old Raiders receivers. DJ Turner's still out there.
Mm-hmm. Wonder what
But I
Jerry
mean,
Rice is doing right now.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much. And
You're
the rest of these guys are all going to be available late in the training camp. I mean, these guys are going to be.
Honestly, it's better to look for a receiver once you got training camp coming along and you've seen other teams who's on their roster bubble.
Yeah. I mean, that's really it. And Keenan Allen's 33. Amari Cooper's 30, but Amari Cooper's older in football years than Keenan Allen. Yeah. What's GJ Chalk's size?
He's 6'3", but less than 200 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a guy I just can't believe he's been in the league as long as he has because he's never done anything. Yeah, it's just there's nothing really out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at a guy, I would bring back Deontay Hardy before I bring back a lot of these other guys. But Deontay Hardy, it's basically you've got younger versions of him out there.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if the Jets can give us Allen Lazard.
Well, that's why I said we have to watch the waiver wire when they make the final cut downs because there's just not a whole heck of a lot out there,
Mm-hmm.
Last thing, they've got rookie minicamp this week, and then after that they start the OTAs. Does Derek Carr start making an appearance soon?
I'd be
Or
surprised.
when do you expect a decision to be made on Derek Carr?
I think the decision will be made around after June 1st. I think.
Oh, so they're going to actually wait for the calendar date of June 1st?
Yeah, I think it's going to be after June 1st. I think that's when they're really going to consider things, and they're going to look at primarily who gets into mandatory minicamp.
Well, the mandatory minicamp is before June 1st. The mandatory minicamp, I just had this up here earlier. Where was it? Mandatory minicamp, I think, is this.
Let's see. I got the
June 12th or 13th, I think.
June 10th through June 12th. That is when
June 10th to June 12th. Okay. Yeah, I knew I just had it up a second ago. Okay, so I think it's before that. I think it's during OTAs because he's not going to come to OTAs. I think that's when they're going to start looking at it and trying to make a decision on that. I mean, we're only in the first week of May. I think a decision is going to come probably before the end of the month, before the mini camp. I think that's when they'll make that decision. Just because it's they've got it. It's like an albatross. It just hangs over this team. They've got to clear this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine. I just can't imagine they're going to keep him around like this. They've got to figure out how they're going to deal with this now, because the longer they yeah, the longer they let this hang around, the more the questions are going to come after every press conference. Have you talked to Derek Carr? I mean, I already lived through the in 1990 when Bobby Hebert sat out the whole season, and Hebert was a constant conversation, and we did the same thing. We didn't draft a quarterback. We were going to go with John Forcade. They brought. I'm not going to talk bad about this man because he has dementia, Alzheimer's. He's been diagnosed with early onset of this disease. But they dragged Tommy Kramer out of a retirement home and tried to use him as the backup quarterback because he was a quarterback when Finks was the GM of the Minnesota Vikings. But yeah, Tommy Kramer, back in 1990, he was at the end of his career. I think he was like 35 years old, and it didn't work out. So they really made no alternative plan for Hebert. So as the losses built up, those first 3 games where the Saints couldn't score an offensive touchdown, Mora Finks asked every Monday, "Have you talked to Hebert yet? Is there any movement on Hebert?" And for Finks, all he did was dig his heels in him further. Said, "I'm not giving Hebert anything he wants. He's going to come crawling back to me." And that was when they and I don't think he will. I don't think he will, Jerry. If he comes, he's coming to talk to the doctors and coming to talk to the front office. He's not coming to work with his teammates. But, I mean, with Hebert never came. Hebert said, "I'll live on food stamps rather than come crawl on my knees to Finks." And Finks wouldn't even trade him. Supposedly, the Raiders offered a first-round pick and Marcus Allen because Al Davis hated Marcus Allen. For Hebert. Hebert wanted to go to the Raiders, and Finks wouldn't trade him. Finks would not let him go. He was going to break him. That was his attitude, and he didn't. So then in week 4, we had the panic move, and we gave up the Lawrence Welk trade for Steve Walsh. And I call it the Lawrence Welk trade because those of you who are old enough to know who Lawrence Welk is, he started every musical thing he did, and a 1, and a 2, and a 3. And that's exactly what the Saints gave up, a first-round pick and a third-round pick in 1991 and a second-round pick in 1992. So, and what did Dallas do with those picks? They got Jimmy Johnson got 2 Super Bowl rings out of those picks. So I don't want that to happen again. I don't want, Loomis isn't going to panic and make a stupid trade like that because we do have players, but I don't want Carr hanging over this franchise like Hebert was. We got to answer that question over and over and over again. I want him gone. And I know you know who Lawrence Welk is. You and I are close to the same age, so don't give me that. That's when you were stuck at your grandparents' house. On a Saturday night or a Sunday, your parents were going out that night, so you had to go to your grandmother's house, and she's going to put that damn thing on at 6:00 on Saturday nights. We got the bubbles and the whole bit. Listen to old big band standards on the Lawrence Welk program. Yeah. I just wanted to watch Carol Burnett. That's all I wanted to watch on Saturday night. So I think they do make a decision early. I think they make a decision a lot earlier, and I think when you see Nick Underhill reporting it's time to move on, when you see this story coming out from Jane Slater, I think the Saints pretty much are telling you, look, we're going to make a decision on this, and it's going to happen pretty soon. So he'll be gone. He will be gone. Matt, I know you're not part of the Saints media, but you do tweet a lot. I know you also participate in the Discord channel. If people wanted to follow you or read some of the things that you say, where can they find you?
You can find me at Budrich17 on Twitter. That's where I mostly post, talk about Saints stuff. I do sometimes write a little thing on a Substack. I post sometimes. I laid on my draft thoughts and stuff. I've got a couple things I'm kind of thinking of writing, but it's nothing serious.
Okay. All right. So Budrich, over there on X, I know he also participates in one of our fellow podcasts a lot, Saints Happy Hour podcast. He's frequently a commentator on there, or at least throwing out questions. That's the trivia man. He runs some of these questions by me to see if I'm going to catch them. So most of them get filtered out before they get to Saints Happy Hour podcast. Because if I catch him pretty quickly, he's like, yeah, it's probably too easy. Then I'll go to another one. If he stumps me, he says, oh, I know it's going to be a good one. So thank you for filling in for Bob. And I kept you a lot longer. I could see you yawning the whole time. That's what Bob does to me. Let me know it's time to get off the air.
Yeah, but it's called being teacher tired. That's my problem.
Yeah, I know. All right. Thank you guys for sticking with us. I know we went way over tonight, but there was a lot that I wanted to talk about tonight. Next week, Bob will be back. We will talk about Saints minicamp. Hopefully, the resolution of Derek Carr. We'll also start going into some of these other players, the undrafted free agents, and so forth, and see if there's some stuff that can possibly come loose. Bob's always got some great profiles. He's still writing on social media. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Those in the New Orleans area, stay dry as best you can. Bob, hope you're feeling better. And thank you, guys. Thank you, Matt, for filling in. We'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.